tradition in our family and in many other families across the nation that on the night of New Year's Eve we are to make a wish or resolution that will occur sometime in the next year or follow.
Just as we do on the 12th stroke of New Year's Eve, Chrysanthemum made her wish.
The clock's hands grabbed 11:59. My feet seemed to stride ahead of me, leading me to a dark rock well. You could make out the shape of the bucket swinging back in the forest in the night sky. As my head quickly lifted up, I peered over the stone and gazed into the leftover rain from the storm last week. My feet were still in a puddle that the rain had left. I could feel the mud splash into my sandals every time I took a step. When I raised my foot up, the rain would drain out and softly lay back on the ground. I started to whisper a wish, in a way I could hardly hear myself, wondering if I was even talking. My reflection stared back at me, and I soon realized it wasn't my own. No, I mustn't tell you what my wish was, for my fate depends on it. Confidently, I walked away. My heart was beating uncontrollably fast, when out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure slowly rising out of the well. I jerked my body around to see a large, gloomy, transparent figure slowly rising out of the darkness. The moon shone, revealing its silhouette. I carefully carried my body around, thinking I was hallucinating, while watching the grass twirl under my feet. My body felt still, mesmerized, until the soft touch of a finger lightly tapped me on my left shoulder. There, standing in front of me, was a girl. She looked my age, and she was wearing a long white cloak. It was so dark, I could hardly see her features. My eyes could see that her gown skimmed at angles, as if she was standing in shallow water. When I looked down, my eyes drew me to see that her feet were hovering off the ground. Not much, but a fair amount. I could see her profile. She had large cheekbones. She had a slim, delicate face, her hair falling down past her shoulders in big heaps of thickness. It rested gently on her skin until a cool breeze would soar by and lift it up. The top of her locks would look shiny and reveal the color of leaves on a fall day, when her hair was in the air. Lifeless and still, there was not a bit of expression or joy or sadness on her face. Then her mouth began to speak in a way that made me uncomfortable. It was the sweetest, most touching voice, but almost wispy. "I am Chrysanthemum," she said.
I am Chrysanthemum.
I stood there silently surprised. I felt as if someone were tightly holding my lips shut in a stunning sort of way. In my own head, I was rolling around to the thought of, I've never heard such a unique name. My own. She led me to a large wooden bench that had fractures running down the spine. She carefully sat down, holding the back of her gown, and crossed one leg over the other, and sat with no movement. She asked me if I had any friends.
Do you have any friends?
Depressed, I said no.
I just moved here, and I'm afraid of talking to new people. So no, I don't. Every time I try and find one, they just drift away. I've always wanted a trustworthy, loyal friend to count on, but just never seem to find one.
I told her I lived here for a short period of time, and I was fearful of talking to new people, and I always wanted a thoughtful, trustworthy, loyal person to rely on. She spoke to me in the sweetest sound that I was to be her friend for all eternity, and she was to guide me through life.
I'll be your friend for all eternity and guide you through life.
Thank you. She grabbed my hand with a gentle touch and pulled me toward her, guiding me to the center of town. As we strolled down the brick road, I began to examine everyone that passed. There were dozens of friendly, innocent nymphs, mortals, heroes, goddesses, and gods that I could have become friends with, but for reasons unknown, they didn't want to be mine.
Chrysanthemum, get in your chair.
Who's going in there? Why can't I just have a friend? Why does nobody want to be my friend? Hi! My name's Chrysanthemum. You want to be friends? Of course not. Ever since your Uncle Narcissus fell in love with himself, I've hated you. And I will always. Now get out of my face.
Once I tried to become friends with Aphrodite, but she has held a grudge on my family ever since my uncle Narcissus fell in love with himself. I seemed close and felt as if I had more in common with Chrysanthemum. I glanced back, tapping her on the arm. To my astonishment, my nimble fingers seeped right through. I was certain I had touched her. I saw my hand touch her fair skin, but I felt nothing, bitterness. The feeling of air made me shiver. She peered at me, and she asked me why I was feeling so glum. I talked to her about how my mother passed away from Zeus striking her with a lightning bolt, and how my father was never in love with my mother, and left me when I was a young child, but always remembered his true love, Eurydice, who was banned to the underworld forever. I stopped talking when I saw the look on Chrysanthemum's face. She once again had no expression. She looked at me when days I had something to think about, or my mind was glued to one thing. I couldn't stop looking at her. She looked astonished. She proclaims, "Our past is the same, for that happened to me too." I could not believe it. Chrysanthemum was the mere image of my present, past, and even future. I couldn't believe my eyes. My life flashed before me, and for a moment I thought she was me. I was wrong. She was my soul, standing in front of my very own eyes.
Having a rushing tone in my heart, I felt overwhelmed, knowing I was standing in front of my new, loyal, trustworthy friend, my spirit. I felt an urge to reveal my wish to her. I walked closer, bobbing my long neck towards her ear, making the decision to tell. Without me thinking, my voice became released. Her ear captured what I said. "Chrysanthemum, when you came out of the well, did you hear my wish?" "I did. You wished for a loyal," I interrupted her, "a true best friend." "You mustn't tell people your wish," my ghost said, "for then it won't come true." She said this in a rough tone.
But it mustn't not her mouth, for I've already got a true best friend.
Chrysanthemum had a glossy, fearful, almost scary look in her eyes. She turned around and halted behind my back. With her stepping forward, I could hear the air rush through her, pressuring me to walk back towards the old well.
Well was located. She grasped my arm and flew me over the water, putting one arm over my chest and shoved me, forcing my head underwater, crushing my bones. She looked at me during these few seconds. I couldn't breathe. I was so startled. I couldn't move a muscle. Then she jerked my face up, exposing me to the fresh air, but I was not able to take a breath before my shoulders and head was dunked again, getting the top portion of my cloak soaking wet. Everything was wet. I kept my mouth shut, forcing myself not to breathe, hoping I could get a second chance to capture oxygen above the water. I waited and waited, but I was still being held underneath the well. I felt the grip, and I felt the grasp of needing air, but I couldn't. I started squirming, but unfortunately Chrysanthemum's grip was too strong to bear. I knew my life was at stake. I quit trying to escape and fighting her grasp. I started to think of what to do next. Then slowly I opened my mouth. I couldn't take it any longer. I inhaled to what seemed to be a gallon of liquid. I coughed more water and entered my lungs. The gust of wind blowing out of her mouth made me shake. I began to feel numb. It felt like I was swollen. I felt tired. I felt scared. I shouldn't have told my wish. Then everything went limp. I was standing in front of a wicked, nasty, evil girl. I'm such a sweet young lady. How could my spirit, I paused, be so dastardly? It all made sense now. I'm done. My life is over. A year has passed. I see nothing but black and the most horrible tints of red. Blood. Where is my soul? I wonder.
Everything is dreadful in the underworld. I can hear the cry of the dead upon me, and I see the boatman, Charon, sailing across the Styx River. I shouldn't have said my wish, for then it wouldn't have come true.
The clock's hands reached 11:59. A girl's feet seemed to stride ahead of her. Her head peered into the well. I heard her wish. She wants a friend. The end. Moral: be careful what you wish for. Don't tell your wish. Tradition: New Year's resolution. By Izzy Bonecutter and Jenna Engelken.